Good afternoon.
Hey, Lonnie, how you doing? Thank you for that nice gift. That was very sweet of you.
Oh,
The lovely color. Oh, it's fabulous. Here, this is everything that was in your mail. I mean, most of it is, it's like the content, I mean, your budget's in here.
oh, okay.
God knows you want to send it. Tons. Well, like,
They just don't think about it.
right? Well, and I am happy actually to just sweep the mailbox and bring it in here on Tuesday night. So that's probably what I should do.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Good, how you doing?
Good.
Okay, do you want a chair?
She's
want
just
one
my name
No,
plate
no.
yet.
Ah.
Ma'am.
Okay. Let's see, should I just take a guess on where people are gonna sit tonight? Maybe I'll wait.
And so according to where I am, like.
Right. There he is. This is for you. You have to clean out your box. There's Christmas cards in here. I think I just said to Lonnie, I think maybe on Tuesday nights before we have a meeting, I'll just sweep the boxes and bring it in here.
Is everybody?
There's Marty cleans his out regularly. Ben cleans his out regularly because they're in the building more. But everybody else is like, but there's stuff in my box. What? You're right, exactly.
It's way back there.
All right, I need.
Yeah.
Not that one.
Oh,
so-
I see.
You see how the tails over there are cut off, right? You can't at them. So the first thing that I do is I hit the wide angles to the energy system. There. If you move it, I can move it. Move it. So like it push it, tell you over the other side. I'll go back out. There, what is it? This. But sometimes you gotta. We should get a chair. Oh, she's in the audience. He is, she's ordered. I think this is the Word document that I typed. Yeah, so. And
Yeah, I sent my notice out Friday. I'm just gonna hold you up if I run over. Am I?
Hello.
I'll have to check the calendar.
hey, Ben.
5.
Okay, then I'm not gonna do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done candidates.
Oh, wow.
Lonnie, you could just let yourself out.
Yeah, but, I mean, I don't have to hear.
No,
It doesn't
you-
matter if you
yeah.
go out the back door by the rec center, you just walk out, door locked behind you. So everything else can already be locked up and you can just go in and out, or you can go out that door. Yeah, well, I'll talk to you after the meeting. We'll work it out. If you want to use the conference room, it's fine. We'll, yeah,
I just have dogs jumping all around when I'm interviewing.
yeah, I don't blame you. I figured it was about the dogs.
Yeah.
Is Erica coming tonight, I assume?
Oh, you and me.
Lonnie
and I were like the last 10 cars to get to decrease that they were about to turn away, and instead of putting it away, they gave us the 5-minute parking, like, where you want them. Out in your car.
Saturday was unbelievable. I couldn't believe how busy it was.
I didn't know what, like, I was saying it's not a holiday weekend.
I think the locals came out in force and the like hardcore skiers were like hardcore tourism skiers were here. or whatever.
I agree.
But we went from I was gonna take the bus, but my friend was gonna give me a ride, so we went to the Highlands Garage. They had the meter they parked at, they were gonna say, keep people away from there. And the high school was full. We skipped elementary school, we went to the buttermilk full, we went to Tie Hack, and then we just sat there and watched this woman take her skis off with the uphilling and and then responded.
Yeah, it was the first time.
So, no there.
You weren't.
Yeah.
We lost your focus, we made it worse, she had hand surgery. Back. Sorry. How you doing?
Okay, how are you?
Good.
Let's try that.
It was the best drive I've ever had coming back from.
Oh, good,
I didn't even take me 3 hours.
good.
A
Wow.
little tempted. It was perfect.
When was that? When was that?
Yesterday.
Yes.
Yesterday afternoon.
Nice.
Dry and sunny and the traffic.
What a concept.
Unlike today, yeah. House closed, there was an accident in the canyon, like,
But it wasn't a semi.
no, it was a truck versus a car. I did not.
Well, I guess it's very.
I'm gonna give you yours after I start you.
Oh, are you gonna sit over here?
No, I can just stand.
Okay.
They'll just do the consent.
Are you gonna do roll call or do you want me to?
I'll do it.
We got this. Sure.
I ran into Ben today. I know, like.
Oh, the other side is like. No, but I run out.
It's like should the gray spot.
It looks good. Here, Chris.
Thank you. Keep it.
It's already good. It's like, it's like, so, yeah.
That's here. And then you're gonna come up here. That's fine.
People have to get. I go to stack
Still have the spot though.
because every year I start a new one. Working my way through by day.
MCO.
How do I get?
Thank you. What time is it?
5:59.
You might want to put battery in that. Or have some. No, I don't know what they are. Anyway, hey, how are you? Good. I should sit in there. And I don't want to. Oh. I'm doing roll call.
It's already up here.
All right, it being 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Kathy, can you start us off with roll call, please?
Erica Starhawk. Here. Chris Hassett.
Here.
I don't think, oh, right on now.
Here.
Okay. Reed Ziani.
Here.
Colin Meyer.
Here.
Bonnie Kitchen. Here. Marty Silverstein.
Here.
And Baumhoff.
Here. Everybody, thank you, Kathy. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which consists of accounts payable, Board of Trustees minutes from Valentine's Day, liquor license renewal for the poorhouse modification premises for street side dining, and resolution number 2, series of 2023, Tacos Park planning grant. Any questions or items to discuss on the consent agenda?
No. Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. All right, motion by Erica, second by Lonnie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, our big item of the night, we think, bringing in the new town clerk and saying goodbye to our outgoing town clerk, whether she likes it or not. We're gonna give people a moment to say things after we swear in. Jessica.
This ain't new and old.
Okay.
Swear in or swear at her.
Are you swearing her in?
I am.
All right, let's do it.
So if you, raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Dr. Martin, do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare. Do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare. And affirm. That I will support. The Constitution. Of the United States. And of the state of Colorado. And I will faithfully. Perform the duties. Of the office. Of town clerk. Upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations.
All right, so Kathy, don't go anywhere. We'll keep you in the hot seat for a moment here. I know that there's quite a few people who would like to say things, and so Lauren, do you want to kick us off? You're already,
I will be happy to do so.
okay.
And then I'll go run the errands I was gonna run.
Anybody from the public that would like to speak, will invite you up as well, and any board members.
I have had the distinct pleasure of being able to be shepherded from the East Coast into Carbondale, Colorado by Kathy's expertise and kind guidance. Mostly kind. I just want to say how truly honored I am to have been able to work with you, even though it was for a very short time. You are so well respected and well regarded, both in town and outside of town. People know that if they want to get a job done, all they need to do is call on you. You can let them know how to do it. You can search and you will dig until you get the answers that you need to be able to provide them. And honestly, 18 years, Kathy, people are going to be struggling a little bit to figure out how to manage without you. So I have a couple of things to read that I would like to read into the record that are not my words, from Jay Harrington and from Stacy Burnett. And thank you, Marty, for helping to gather these, and I have no idea what just happened to our picture, but we'll just get rid of that. So this is from Stacy. Tonight, we share our collective gratitude for the diligent and ethical service of Kathy Derby as our town clerk. Kathy has ensured that our municipal elections are carried out correctly and fairly. She's made certain that our public processes work like clockwork, from public notices, municipal court, and meeting minutes. Kathy has also been by our community's side during the most trying of times by helping families through the burial process of their loved ones. She's been compassionate and helpful in those dark times. Excuse me. I admire Kathy's direct, no-nonsense approach to her service with a great sense of humor sprinkled in. She's professional and calls out those that try to influence or sway procedures that must remain neutral to protect this public institution. While we all know she has a backbone, one of her best qualities is her poker face. Over the years, during the hundreds of meetings Kathy has sat through, she rarely has let that poker face fade. Some agenda items are beyond boring. Other items can set off officials in the strangest manner, or the frequent standard of board members saying the stupidest blank. Through it all, Kathy keeps her poker face and proceeds with her duties. Kathy has seen or heard it all and kept working for the betterment of our community. She's more than earned her retirement. She's also earned Carbondale's respect and gratitude for being such a dedicated public servant. Enjoy your travels, and please take up a hobby on Tuesday nights. Thank you, Stacy. And from Jay, I had the pleasure of working with Kathy for 10 years in her role as town clerk, one of the more challenging positions in town government. From selling cemetery plots to grieving local families to processing marijuana licenses to some shady characters, Kathy also always remained dignified, caring, and professional. Her moral and ethical compass is only matched by her incredible work ethic. She literally did the work of two people, something rarely seen these days. When I moved from Carbondale, I truly missed working with Kathy and the honesty and candor the Long Island girls shared with me every day. Carbondale is a better community because of Kathy and will be missed. I hope she gets to spend tons of time with her girls and comes to Steamboat to visit. Jay. Thank you.
Other board members, and then we'll open it up.
I'm gonna do a couple of quick comments. First of all, you sworn everyone here in at one time or another. And I had sent something to CML. Maybe they'll publish it, maybe they won't. The essence of it was, I do not know if you're a Democrat, Republican, or liberal, or conservative. I know that the elections get done fairly. The marijuana regulations, which you helped define, because they really weren't any when you started. The liquor regulations, all the nonprofits that came for a special liquor license, where it was a different volunteer who wasn't sure what to do. You walked them through that. So thank you for your years of service. Enjoy your well-earned retirement. Patrick, she's all yours. Good luck.
All right, thank you, Mike. Any other board member comments before we open it up to others?
I have had the pleasure of working with you in multiple different ways. And I just think something that hasn't been mentioned is Kathy has also been the building manager for any efficiency projects in this building. And I think that was how we first started interacting, was on clean energy stuff. And then I really got to know you when I got to bother you, because I wanted to look at who was voting for who voted during the climate action tax. And just really appreciated how well you were to work with and what I was pushing to be able to do. And that was awesome. And then I decided to join here and get to spend 3 times a month hanging out with you. And it's been really awesome. And I'm super grateful for everything I've learned from you, everything our communities learned from you. And I'm also really grateful that you get to go retire and go have a whole lot of fun or not have fun, whatever you want to do. No pressure. So thank you for everything that you've done and being so much fun to work with as well. It's been really awesome.
Anybody else?
I just want to say thank you. I think Marty and Erica put it very well, but just being new to running for office and things like that, it was just great to have a steady and clear person to guide. And that was a good sort of experience of the retail side of government. And I think that's an really important thing for the town, how we help our citizens, and you did a great job with that for so long. So thank you.
All right, anybody who would like to speak? I know Mayor Dan's there, so why don't we start with him, and then anybody else looks like and has something to say. Anybody else who would like to go as well?
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Kathy, thank you for great friendship over many years. I've told you many times, and I've told many people in this town that you made the job fun. You kept me out of hot water, and I really appreciated the guidance. I think Jay and Stacy summed up comments very well. But what I'd like to add is one thing I learned about your role is most people know you as the town clerk, but you're the face of the town from a business perspective, whether it's somebody buying a cemetery plot, or getting a liquor license. But you're also the face of the town from a democratic standpoint and the face of democracy. And I also know you to be a staunch advocate for staff. And I admired your integrity and strength when it came to advocating for your colleagues. So I think few people realize what a key role you've played, and you've done it with humor, with grace and integrity. And it was an honor to work with you. So thank you for all your service. Thank you.
Hi, old neighbor.
Hi, neighbor. Well, Kathy, everything everyone has said here tonight holds true, and you have done so much for this community. And I remember someone saying once, well, that's just the town clerk. And I was like, what do you mean just the town clerk? You're talking about the woman who can get it done. And you were boots on the ground, you were helpful, you were kind, you were investigative, you were like a pit bull on something. She sunk your teeth into it and just wouldn't let go, which we needed, and you led by example. Helped me more than many times with different projects over the years coming to town, and helped me get CHA going, and what to do and who to talk to and how to do it. So I personally appreciate that. And, I think of the many hats you wear during that time you wore. And it reminds me of a commercial years ago where, give it to Mikey, he'll try anything. Well, when it came to town projects, it was give it to Kathy, she'll get it done. So kudos to you for that. And then, for many years, I got to leave here and go home and say hi to you and Pat in the neighborhood. And we've missed you, but we knew moving back to where you were was part of the game plan, and that worked. And now you're going on to the other plan. So when you get that retirement thing nailed down, give me a call, we'll have coffee, and maybe you can tell me how to do it. So thank you.
Anybody else like to say anything? Last call. I'll just add my own thoughts, Kathy. I mean, it's great to follow Mayor Stacy Bernard and Mayor Dan Richardson. I think every organization has somebody that's kind of the rock of the institution, and that carries that institutional knowledge forward, that helps onboard people and helps maintain a positive culture. And you've been that here for so long, so you're just going to be sorely missed. And I know that boards of trustees, we can get all kinds of wild and crazy ideas about policies and big things that we want the town to do, and then the hard work of implementing that falls to staff. And you're just such a gracious person who can take that and run with it when that's the direction we're going to go. Okay. But also let us know when something doesn't seem feasible. And I think that's a really good balance. I remember when I came in and picked up my petition to run for trustee 6 years ago, and you stood up and gave me a hug. So that was the one time that maybe you were a little unbiased or a little biased that one time. But I really appreciated that, and it really made me feel good about what I was doing too. So thank you. Let's give Kathy a round of applause.
So this is from the town, and there's something in here from the town for those who think it's a card. That's from me, and this is your own version of the license. Thank you. Thanks. Thank everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Kathy. By order of the town clerk, there will be no party.
See you around the campfire.
All right. We'll do that. Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Woo! Thanks, Todd, for letting us have her.
All right, well, a good start. Feel free to stay if you came for that. There you go. Person present not on the agenda. Anybody who'd like to speak to us on something when it's not on the agenda. So,
Out of order.
Like what to do, it's only 6:20.
we'll give a little lots for
Take her out to dinner or something. And I'm more impressed that our new town clerk is still sitting here after hearing all the kudos. Those are pretty big shoes to fill.
I'm terrified.
You're in good
I'm
shape.
here to help you succeed.
Big time.
So don't hesitate to ask. I'm gonna go postal on you guys tonight. My quick 3 minutes here. The post office is a very significant building in our community and has a great presence. And over the past few years, that presence has declined in its appearance, its welcomeness. We've had a broken window for 3 years. The plants are overgrown, unkept. We've had volunteers, groups, which I've been part of, go to the post office and offer free help. Free help, does that exist these days? To help them pull out those old plants, put some gravel down, low maintenance, help them clean up the appearance, because it's an important building in our community and it speaks for our community and it has a focal point on Main Street. So we were turned down on our offers for help. When I asked how long the window is going to be broken, I met with disgruntled employees saying, "Oh, you gotta be kidding me. That's not even on the docket to get fixed." And it's a little discerning. And so when recent travels took me to places where they have kiosks, you know, self-help kiosks at the post office where you can mail a package even. You don't have to stand in lines, you can go up and self-help and get those done. So I happened to mention that to one of the clerks the other day. Do you think we'll ever get kiosks and it would help that line and people can come in at all times of the day and night and mail their package? And, you know, he's like, "Oh God, that'll never happen here." And I said, "Why are you so enthusiastic?" He says, "Because that's a reality. There's something going on between Utah and Colorado that says we see no improvements here. And they don't really care if you take your business to UPS or wherever." And I said, "Well, I'm really sad to hear that. Really sad to hear that." That's my personal experience. As many of you know, I help recruit businesses and people to our community. And coincidentally or not, over the past 6 months, I've had 2 small businesses look at Carbondale to come here to base their business out of. And they do a ton of business at the post office. The first things they asked about, which building is the post office? Can you take me by the post office? And we walked by it and they looked, and then they went up and asked the help at the counter some questions and came back out and did their thing and part of their assessment. And when they came back to me and said, "Boy, my biggest concern in your community is your post office because it's not going to fit our needs. And our postal requirements are huge." Now, in the day of ordering everything online and sending everything you know, without even having to go someplace and people pick it up from your doorstep. I find that unique, but it's a uniqueness to those businesses and it helped them determine they did not want to consider us any longer because of the postal services here. And one gentleman said, he says, God, it's the most dilapidated building on Main Street. Says, that's really sad. And it was summertime. The weeds, as we walked over the sidewalk, because you could not walk in the driveway because there was a puddle that we could have swam across, where the weeds were up over my knees. And he's like, do they not take care of this? And I said, well, it's the post office. So I wanted to share that with the town tonight. I don't know what we can do as a community, what pressure we can put on building owners. For years, no one shovels in front of the post office. If it's an icy, snowy day, you can count on walking in ice in front of the post office. And for the rest of us on Main Street, we're out there shoveling, whether we're getting our hands slapped or not for doing it, putting the snow in the right place. We are doing it. And to have to see our largest occupant on Main Street with an unshoveled sidewalk is just fingernails on a blackboard to me, a business owner around the corner. And so when we get feedback from outsiders looking to come here, that really struck home. And I wanted to share that with you. I don't know what we can do, but it seems like something. Can they get tickets for not shoveling their sidewalk?
Thank you for
But
letting us
thank you.
know about those issues. Sure. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna respond very quickly. Having worked for the Postal Service for 25
And
years,
thank you, Marty.
you will never get a self-help kiosk here. We don't have the volume of business to justify it. That's just a fact.
We didn't have the volume. We are growing.
Oh, okay, but I'm just saying. I will meet with you offline. And I will tell anyone who's interested, you need to write your congressperson and your senators. The two senators have written to the Postmaster General saying one of the problems they have getting people is not only the wages, but you fill an application, it takes 2 months to hear back from them. In this job market, no one's waiting 2 months to hear back about a job. Okay, but like I said, you know where I'm at, I know where you're at. We'll get together, we'll have a cup of coffee. I'll give you some other ideas.
Thanks, Marty.
Thank
That's
you.
like a good next step. Yeah, I'm not sure what the town's power or role is. Interestingly, I saw it through one of the Colorado Station, the ski towns memos, something about, I think it was a Crested Butte, where they don't have a post office right now, I think, and
Steamboat, Frisco,
all sorts of issues. So I know local governments around the mountain region are struggling with some of those issues. Any other comments from people for items not on our agenda? Okay, we will move on into trustee comments. Trustees have comments. Right.
Well, it is with sadness that I report the passing of Wick Moses. He had been KDNK, Mountain Fair, CRMS, in audio file. He knew Wick. He and Neil Young agreed that vinyl records on a good turntable was the only way to listen to music. So I'm sorry we lost him, but that's all I have to say on that. I would just say the tree board met. They have some interesting and exciting things they're looking at. Adopt a garden for hopefully teenagers or families or businesses. They're looking at the trees on Main Street, how to make them alive. That would be a good start. And so it isn't just, okay, it's Arbor Day. So we're trying to do other things to help beautify town. And with that, I'll pass on to the next person.
Other trustee comments? Trustee comments, go ahead.
I attended the CC4CA, which is Colorado Communities for Climate Action, board meeting on Friday. And the big item was that we as a board reviewed an updated version of the policy statement. And that's the policy committee that Colin sits on, has been working on updating that. And that's the document that as members of CC4CA, all of us agree to unanimously. So it came to us in kind of a red line version, just a few updates. I think we'll all be in agreement with all of them. But there's a couple that were flagged by a couple different board members. So they'll go back to them. But what I'm thinking is they'd really like us before the retreat in June to have had our boards kind of buy into it instead of after the retreat like we've done in the past. So maybe on a May agenda, we could just plan for having the policy statement in our packet. We don't have to go through it in a ton of detail, but then at least you guys see it, the public sees it. And then we can give our approval for the retreat and kind of finalizing it. That sounds good. And then the only other thing was just some guiding, some changes to kind of the overall the guidelines of the organization and kind of some redundancy in leadership needs if needed. Like it's a startup organization, it's been around 5 years. So as it grows, there's just some things that we keep finding that are like, oh, we should make sure if something happens to the executive director who has access to the bank accounts or, those kinds of things. But I really appreciate that they're continually evolving and looking and reviewing at things like that as an organization. And then we are up to 42 member organizations as well. So it's counties and municipalities that are members.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, Monica.
A swim update. The Mine Springs Health Foundation will be covering the funding gap to get the withdrawal facility built out. You might remember that the initial seed funding of a $750,000 grant from the State Office of Behavioral Health needs to be used by June 30th. So therein lies the urgency to act quickly. With now a contractor identified, all indications point to a late summer completion. And along with that, for more favorable insurance reimbursement, the operator changed the service model from a 3.1 non-medical facility to a 3.7 medically capable detox that now calls for the addition of a nurse and the necessary supplies to handle the requisite medical clearance and more acute healthcare conditions. These will be factored into the operating budget, and governance expects to see an updated pro forma to reflect that at our next now monthly governance meetings. Okay, public comment opportunity. Maybe I'll apply for the PIO role when I'm done with this. Next Monday at 6 p.m. there will be a virtual update for the public on the Sweetwater Lake Public Access Planning process and for the public to provide feedback to help fine-tune the action plan for that site. This will be similar to the Thompson Divide Commission. And as with any land use directives, there are several steps in the process. I know there was some consternation within the audience of the Thompson Divide discussion, not understanding that future opportunities to comment were still open and would also receive advance notice. What's been instructive for me about this one is the process. So the bill spits out of the legislature. And after all that ceremonial stuff, when the mayor gets to meet the president and the official on-site signing, it then lands on the sticky steps of rulemaking for implementation. And one of the first things that popped out of this one at initial review was, well, wait a minute, how can you designate a state park that sits on federal lands on top of the already quarrelsome juncture between Garfield and Eagle County? So during this, I was thinking, like Lauren, wait. Anyway, the workaround was the formation of the Sweetwater Lake Partnership between CPW as the state stakeholder and the U.S. Forest Service as the federal agency. And over time, the rest of it will just have to shake itself out. So if the public would like to learn more about the Sweetwater Park itself, Sweetwater Park, including recreational access and or provide feedback, there's a link to register, which of course is long, at cpw.info/Sweetwater dash lake dash public dash meeting. They'll forward to Jessica for reference in the minutes. Last one, co-venture. Having met our 3-year commitment of public partnership funding, without further contribution this year, our trustee liaison participation has in principle drawn to a close. So when opening that conversation at last month's board meeting, I was asked if I would stay on as vice chair regardless to help steer the ship based not on my municipal connection, but as a community member, having been part of the early adoption of economic development in the region. So institutional knowledge is the driver on that. And you guys might remember during Stacy Burnott's first year as mayor, then trustee Elizabeth Murphy with businessman Dave Weimer of Edward Jones founded the Carbondale Economic Development Partnership, which received seed funding from the town and the county, and I eventually became president of. But in short, the CDEP was formed in 2011 under the 501c3 wing of the Mountain Regional Housing Corporation with Janet Rippey as executive director. And I believe it was one of the first tenants of the 3rd Street Center. Well, see, even then it made sense for local growth to be tied to housing. At the time, we were flanked by the Roaring Fork Business Resource Center in Glenwood Springs and the Executive Services Corps in Aspen, both of which I also worked with, and not much else between us here in the Roaring Fork Valley and the OEDIT Office of Economic Development in Denver. So long story short, both Mountain Regional Housing and the Carbondale Economic Development Org were eventually absorbed by the county and now reside in Rifle, which is why I've remained active as a GARCO EDO stakeholder. But all of that aside, I'm prepared for this to be my last official co-venture update as their appointed advisor, unless the board might have a desire to continue the more formal relationship. Not a pressing action item, just something for us to think about in general as formative groups like this one, when they vacate the necessity or the eligibility for ongoing fiduciary and or operational oversight are no longer needed. So that's kind of where we are with co-venture. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thanks, Lonnie. I've been wondering about that actually now that they didn't end up in our mini grant process this year. And so they didn't have any funding from us and whether we were going to maintain that 4th seat. So I appreciate that you're keeping it going out of your own interest and involvement and expertise. And going forward, I think we'll look at co-venture like any other group that applies for a small grant. We don't have a full seat in all of those. So that makes sense to me.
Okay.
Thanks. Any other trustee comments? Colin?
Just heads up, the Regional Housing Coalition has been encouraged by DOLA to apply tomorrow for a housing grant. It's the whole federal state money stuff is very confusing. Things, it seems like the state's kind of overwhelmed by what they're being charged with. But the good news is they are very interested in a buy down program for this region. So the grant proposal is going to go in tomorrow. It's going to ask for $3 million. There is no formal match required, but match is appreciated. So at our meeting in March, potentially we have an update from the Housing Coalition with a formal ask of a letter of support and potentially a contribution to that grant program. So just want to give everybody a heads up that that's probably coming forward. And we'll see where that ends up, but promising.
Great. Thanks for keeping that moving ahead. Anything, Chris?
I'll just echo Marty's comments about WIC and how sad it is that we have this 40th birthday party coming up, and we were hoping he would provide us with many anecdotes. That's too bad. And then sort of on Erica's line of thought as well, there have been 350.org protests about this oil train thing going through the canyon, and I'm just curious to see if we had any interest in writing a letter or some kind of level of support for our neighboring municipalities and jurisdictions that are fighting that.
Yeah, I think we could. I mean, we decided not to enter into the lawsuit, I believe, because we weren't a directly impacted community. But I had somebody ask me about that this week as well. And is everybody familiar with what we're talking about? The heavy, waxy, hot, crude. I don't know how many other words there are in that description, but it sounds like a pretty terrible substance. And I think with everybody's awareness of this train derailment in Ohio, you know, the reality of train derailments and things like that. And that if that happened along the Colorado River, how catastrophic it would be. Chris, do you want to follow up if you know of a letter we could use as a template or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it got bubbled up in the, unfortunately, I missed the last environmental board meeting, so I don't have an update from them, but there should be one soon and we'll talk about it. I think that probably can give us something.
Great, maybe just connect with Lauren and me on that, and we can get it into an upcoming packet on the consent agenda, something like that. I think it's sort of a no-brainer. I don't know why we wouldn't stand with our communities that are impacted. Thanks, Chris. My only comment is just, I attended the CML webinar on Hayden, the small town outside of Steamboat. Did anybody else get to go to that? It's just a little Zoom webinar. It was about their housing dilemmas. And it, you know, it's always just interesting, I think, for us to learn about other small communities and the fact that it can feel like we've done something wrong to cause this housing crisis, or that there's some obvious solutions that we haven't seen yet. And I'm always on some level I appreciate the fact that others are facing the same challenges. The one interesting thing I wanted to share about Hayden, so they're 30, 40 miles, I believe, west of Steamboat. They're very small, they're like 1,000 people. Their biggest struggle is getting developers to build anything. So, you know, sometimes here we feel like the developers are the bad guys and that we want to slow that down. They're in their policies doing everything they can to get somebody to build some houses and apartments in their community. They don't have an inclusionary housing ordinance, so it's not that the 20% deed restricted is standing in their way. Even free market stuff, they just can't get anybody because everybody just wants to build in Steamboat for, you know, same costs, higher margins. So I found that pretty interesting. But they went through a similar process that we have with the housing needs assessment. And then targeting certain AMI ranges and searching for funding, trying to do some land banking. They moved a few small things for it, but pretty informative as CML webinars. All right, if there's no more comments from trustees, move on to attorney comments. Martin, you think? Thank you. Okay, thanks. Lauren, manager comments.
Just one. The Garfield County Emergency Communications Authority Board of Directors has, I guess they draw by lot 2 elected officials to serve on the Board of Directors each year. And they picked us this year, Newcastle and Carbondale. And so they're looking for a volunteer trustee to serve on their Board of Directors. I think the last one was Marty. It is, the Board of Directors as a whole meets on the first Thursday of December every year. And then the executive board meetings are the 4th Thursday of the month at noon, 10 months of the year, which are optional but encouraged for whoever our representative is. And I wanted to bring that up. They're looking for a name.
What's the group called again?
It's the Garfield County Emergency Communications Authority.
Anybody interested in that? We can find that.
Didn't meeting used to be on Wednesday?
Will you raise in your hand, Chris?
Sure, I'll do it.
Okay. Sorry.
But if Marty wants to do it.
I just want to make sure that
Sign if you-
it's nice so you can raise it and put it down.
Great, you're okay with that, Chris? That
Yeah.
works in your schedule?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for doing it. Anything else, Martin?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on with the agenda then, we have a public hearing, new liquor license for La Raza. La Raza, you can join us at the table or the podium, either one is fine. Introduce yourself for the record, please.
Well, I'm gonna just introduce the crew here, but
All right.
I didn't
Even
say
though-
everything here I would add, so like, I can tell you everything you said about Kathy and the process we just went through. Woman's incredible, so thank you. My name is Jordan White. I am one of 3 partners in a new restaurant called Raza. I'm taking over the Mika Cita space. We're here to talk about a liquor permit, we're in a building permit, and so we're trying to do it all. Partners here, Adam Longren, Brad Smith, and Chef Rigoberto Vasquez. So, you got any questions for us?
Great. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I guess I'd ask, I understand you guys have operated restaurants in Aspen.
Myself and Adam and Aspen, Brad, all over the state.
Okay, so you guys, your employees are gonna have tips training, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I wanted to ask, and a happy hour.
We call the bar menus, just kind of sit in the bar and everything.
Yeah, well, that's my, when I make an happy hour is wonderful.
Yeah.
What's your hopes for opening day?
Well, currently, we've been going back and forth with Bruce on our building permit, but it is in review. It's not a huge remodel. We're targeting early April, they pull us out of the line.
Okay, great. I know the community will be really excited to see that space built again. We really miss that.
Yeah, it wasn't particularly hard to get the legal petitions, signatures, in some area there.
This is a public hearing, so I'll open it up. Does anybody from the public have a comment on this application for a new liquor license? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the liquor license for Raza.
Did I hear a second over here really quick? I think so, Luis. Okay, so motion by Marty, second by Luis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you. That's great.
For opening business in Carbondale. I'd look forward to visiting you after our meetings.
We're really excited. Thank you.
We'll throw Kathy's party if you ever throw it.
We'll surprise her.
Okay, moving on. We have a special day liquor license for Blue Lake Preschool. I see you're back there. Sure, you can just tell us a little bit about the event. Introduce yourself for the record, please. Tell us a little bit about the event. And we always like to let you advertise a little bit if there's a way to get tickets and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Drew Sorensen, Director of Little Blue Preschool over on 7th Street, representing Lake Preschool Incorporated. Yeah, so our annual fundraiser is one of our favorite events every year, kind of a giant party, honestly. We hosted at the Orchard over on Snowmass Drive. It will be on April 21st this year, from 6 to 10. It's a big party. It means a lot to us, though. It's our largest fundraiser each year. This year, we've got a goal of 63,000, which we're really excited for. It's been since kind of the COVID gap, when we couldn't host it. It came back strong for the last couple of years, which we're really excited about. Blue Lake does a lot of grants and fundraising. It's about 40% of our income. And so this one's a really big one. And so I like to go all out for it. It's only $30 a ticket. You can get them at the schools. Bunch of other businesses, I believe. I'll have to get a full list, actually. I haven't gotten the full list of all of our sponsors yet. But it's really great since we try to keep it at $30 a ticket. So it's super affordable to come in. And then once you're in, there's all sorts of other things going on. We've got a massive raffle where we give away a vacation and a whole bunch of other local prizes. An enormous silent auction that's incredibly provided by our community. We call it business all the way from Denver to Aspen to locally to kind of provide items for that. And then a bunch of donated beer and wine from local places as well, which is always fun. So yeah, I think that's kind of the rundown. I'm happy to answer any other questions too.
Perfect. Any questions for Drew about this event?
Can you buy tickets at the website or?
I believe so.
Blue?
Yep, definitely at the locations. I believe the website, we do have a Venmo online, and so everything can be done online as well, I believe so.
Well, not me. Since I won the condo in Kauai for a week for timbers, I've been a very strong advocate of supporting Blue Lake and Little Blue. And I will make a motion to approve the special event with the license. And it'll be someone else's turn to win this year.
Second.
Motion by Marty, second by Erica. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thanks, Drew.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
All right, next one up is Ducks Unlimited. It's here. Thank you, Eric.
Evening.
Nice to see you again. Same, you know the drill. You can just introduce yourself for the record, tell us a little bit about the event, and then we'll take questions.
Of course. Garrett Jammeron, health volunteer with the local Ducks Unlimited chapter, Crystal River Ducks Unlimited. Been a volunteer since 2006 or 7, somewhere in there. Really passionate about wetlands conservation and wildlife conservation, and that's exactly what Ducks Unlimited is. Started in the 1930s. It is a national and international nonprofit that conserves mainly wetlands for local waterfowl. Our annual fundraiser is also in April 15th this year at the Orchard. It'll be, probably the 11th or 12th time we've done it there. Big party, one of our favorites of the year. It's actually sold out already. We've got 320 tickets or something like that already sold. Mainly local businesses buying corporate tables and whatnot, but really looking forward to it. Last year, coming back after a year off in COVID, we set a record, sent a check net to Ducks Unlimited over $100,000. And we're looking to just come close to that again, because that was pretty amazing. Great live auction. Woody Creek Distilleries always helped us out. And of course, local donations from Kiko and Silver Slicker. So looking to have a fun, safe party that sends a lot of good money to good places.
Great, thanks, Garrett. Any questions for Garrett? Anyone make a motion?
I move to approve the liquor license for Ducks Unlimited for April 15th, the Orchard.
And I'll second it.
Motion by Erica, second by Marty. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thanks,
And
Erica.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next up is a special event liquor license for Crystal River Ballet School.
I'm Jenny Tastic.
Thanks, Amy.
I've been teaching ballet in Carbondale since 1989. That was my age, I'm sorry. Some of you have known me a long time. This year we opened a very brand new nonprofit for the young dancers with pre-professional goals. And this will be our inaugural fundraiser. They are having it March 18th at the RVR barn. We have beer and wine being donated from local businesses as well. The 9 young ladies that are part of the group will be performing that night, and we have very few tickets left. I'm sorry. Though the young ladies love to dress up, but their parents like to have fun, so then there'll be beer and tacos while the girls put on their ball gowns and their tutus and tiaras. It's our very first fundraiser, so I'm learning from our Blue Lake buddies who I donate to every year and who I get students from every year, so.
Great. And you talked to Jessica and Kathy about the requirements and.
Jessica was there on my first day applying for an event license, and it was her first day training with Kathy, so it was a good time for both of us.
Yeah, just if it's your first time doing one of these, our only concerns really are over serving people and serving underage people.
I am tips trained. I was tips trained while I worked for Theater Aspen. I don't know what the length of time that is, because that was several years ago, but one of our adult students is also tips trained.
Okay.
And Jessica's daughter is a student at the ballet school, so if I need any help, she will be there to guide me.
Right.
On a weekly basis.
Thanks, Jenny. Any questions for Jenny? Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the special event liquor license for the, let's see.
Crystal River Ballet
Crystal
School.
River Ballet School. Is it, have it more than that?
That's okay. Okay. That'll do it. All right, motion by Chris, do a second.
Second.
Second by Erica. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.
Good luck with the event. And our final special event liquor license of the evening is for KDNK.
You get to that one.
Welcome back.
Can't stay away for too long.
All right, why don't you both introduce yourself for the record? I don't know if Jessica knows everybody's name, but she's writing down notes.
I'm Amy. We get each other's mail, and I too applied to her first day.
All right,
I'm Ally.
Hi.
Development Director at KDNK.
Nice to meet you, Alice.
all right, tell us what we've got here.
Well, KDNK is turning 40 this year, and a big celebration is planned, and yes, the WIC was gonna be a big part of that, but his stories will still live on, and we'll do a special post to WIC. It's April 15th as well, at the 3rd Street Center. It'll take place, there'll be a dinner early in the round room, with storytelling and a chance for people to gather and think about, just honor the station that way. Then, we will have the Magic Beans play in the community hall. We'll have a little lounge in the Callaway room with KDNK DJs playing. And, it's just gonna be a nice way to celebrate. First 250 tickets are free to members of KDNK, so they are going pretty fast, but if you're a member or you want to become a member and get your ticket, now's the time. I won't wait too long. And so, yeah, we're gonna have a dance party because it feels like it's really time to dance.
Right. Questions?
Sure. How do you get your KDNK ticket? If you are a member.
Go on the website and click on the little poster and
Good
it
enough.
just takes you right there. Maria.
Thank you.
KDNK.org. All right. Anything else? This is at the 3rd Street Center, so you didn't have to, our new security rules didn't impact this event, right?
No, but
Because they have their own security rules.
Right.
at 3rd Street.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you have any motion?
Or the DJs want to do it?
I'll make a motion to approve the special event liquor license for KDNK's 40th birthday party.
I'll second it.
All right. Motion by Marty. By Chris. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thanks, Alan.
Thanks.
You guys. Oh, yeah.
All right, we're gonna jump ahead a little bit here because our plum manufacturing modification of premises was pulled from the agenda by the applicant, so we will move on to the Mountain Waste annual update. So that's you. So many familiar faces. Nothing but party from Carbondale.
Hey, great reputation. We'll clean it up. That's your job.
Well, I want to come before you. It's been a while since we've been able to do an actual audit of trash. To see what are the components. As we dealt with COVID, don't forget you guys at Christmas. Good driver. We did the waste audit. It's been almost 3 years. With the COVID, nobody wanted to pull apart trash bags. Nobody go through what the products were. We were lucky enough that the Pitkin County was doing with an engineering firm a full, complete granular audit. So we contacted the Pitkin County and asked if we could use a specific load from your town that they would then pull apart in granular to get really down to the community grid. And we've done that. I'll give you those results. But looking at the diversion, well, starting with the diversion rates for the last year. I can say that Carbondale is one of the absolute highest cities in Colorado, certainly on the western front for diversion. Our numbers are about 30% diversion from landfill. Looking at, we don't have the 2022 final numbers. Looking at 2021, looks like the information from the State of Recycling Colorado edition last year showed the highest residential recycling with the town of Telluride at 28%. Carbondale was 30 this year. So I don't know what their final numbers are, but it's a testament to the town and the folks here. We did the trash today. When we go around and look at the cans that are overloaded, today we had one can overloaded on the trash side. The people have right sized what they've got and are looking to divert into the recycling containers. I think we've seen success for the town of Carbondale. I hope you all agree. I have a quick question. Has anybody here not downloaded the app, the Mountain Waste app, or have you all not downloaded it? So that's one. So our app, it's Mountain Waste. If you go to your app store, Mountain Waste, there's a couple things. First of all, with the every other week recycling, Like we had an issue last month in January with 5 Tuesdays. So people get used to the first and third service day. 5 Tuesdays come along and now you're the second. And the app will send you a text to remind you, today's your recycle day or not, or your trash day. Or when a holiday falls on a Monday and you're pushed to a Wednesday service, it will remind you. There's also a waste wizard that says this, you can type in your product, it'll tell you if it's recycling, compostable, or trash.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah, it's good. I've used it. It's helpful for those reminders, especially when there's a holiday and it's like, well, Labor Day, do they belong it or not? President's Day, I can't remember.
But we've also upgraded it, so if and when we ever have a problem, we can, as the people log into the app, or they get whatever it is, we got you expressing. If we have a delay of service, say a truck breaks down, we're gonna be late, we can circle an area on the map and put information directly to that group of folks saying, hey, we're running a little late, keep your trash out, because we know we might be a little late today. Or some problem comes up, we'll be able to directionally put it, information directly to those group of customers. So please, and we're working with the town to get that information out. So, looking at, looking at the waste sort that we did, just so you know. So again, 30% of the material was diverted as recycling. Then we looked at the trash in the granular separation. Of the trash that we collected, 27% of the trash by weight was recyclable. 32% was actually compostable. Of that 32%, so we did the 32 total, 24% was organic and 8% of that was paper products that could have been diverted. You're still way above the state average. State average for Colorado for diversion is 16%. That includes organics. And the largest percentage of recycling in the trash was actually paper product. It's the product of packaging material and things like that. So 16% was compostable paper, 8% of it was non-compostable but recyclable paper. So that's the big hole, not the whole, but what we see as opportunities for more. Once you have any questions for me.
Thanks, Doug. That's a nice update and a lot of helpful information in the packet. Almost so much information that I didn't know exactly what to focus on.
As I tried to just, give it out, and it was nice to be able to save everybody a lot of money, because we haven't paid for the waste store.
Questions?
Yeah. Sure.
Does all our trash go to?
Yes.
County?
Yeah.
Given this breakdown, are there things from your perspective that we should be encouraging that could help divert more?
You get the paper products, and organics. The food waste, it's those who feel comfortable composting, I believe are composting. Generally, we are giving the information that it's available. But if you're not into doing it, it gets to be contaminated and the whole when in doubt, throw it out on the recycling side to keep the contamination down. We can live with a little bit of contamination. On the composting side, none at all. You can ruin an entire load with bad stuff in the compost.
But like on the paper side, so you said some is
So
good recycling.
yeah,
other-
some of it's still messy. I mean, it was paper product,
Yeah.
but it was greasy or something else.
Okay.
But it's still a lot of packaging material. Still a lot of some cardboard. We're getting a lot of cardboard in the recycle, but still some cardboard in the trash.
Have you seen stabilization in the recycling market? It seemed like there was some
Yes.
issues with.
The pricing of the commodity as we currently deliver to Denver. We are a division of Waste Connections in 2025. The most sophisticated material recovery facility on the western, certainly in Colorado, and probably the West Coast will be ours in Denver. We are in Commerce City in the middle stages of getting that approved and built. So we'll be able to even better split those products up and get them to where they need to go.
Other questions?
I guess, I'm sure the environmental board would be curious as to any ways they can help disseminate any of this information. If you have, I guess I can,
Well, I'll come to the next meeting. How's that?
I'll talk to them and see if they want to put it on the agenda, but, I think that would be great. And maybe if you would be interested, I don't know what the bandwidth is, but we have this Dandelion Day thing that is a whole community thing that maybe if there's materials or something.
I believe we have a already come together.
Oh, great. Well, you're up to 10 steps in.
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
Pickup, so I know we owe, it's every other week for recycling. So I compost and I recycle. I don't have a lot of trash. So I end up having way too much recycle. But it only comes so I fill it after a week. I don't know if that's what other people run into, it's more just
There is,
that goes into
through the town's contract, I believe there's the opportunity for a second recycling container.
Okay.
That's because we split the town.
Okay.
We split the town on two. We do one side and
Okay.
one week and the other side.
Yeah. So instead of having another pickup, you just have another container.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was a key part of your cost containment, right? I mean, I
Yes.
remember when we looked at the bids, that seemed to be something a lot of us hadn't thought of, I think, was doing recycling every other week really kept the cost down.
Also, it's when it's on the road, it's one lane, it's 25 times a year less that a big truck runs down the street.
I was only gonna suggest that we get this information to the e-board. Because then we do have funds in our, the bag fee fund that kind of, I think we're allowed to use for waste diversion. Like we could have run some ads or just get some notice out there that like, just more education, like don't forget, this is what we're seeing. Look how well we're doing. Look what else we could be recycling.
If we can, we're trying to get more information that the app works wonderfully for what it's coffee grounds, it's something else, it's a no carton, what can I do?
And maybe even promoting the app kind of thing, like this is how you can be more linked into when your garbage get, those alerts, that's awesome, so.
Yeah, the magic, whatever you call it,
Waste Wizard.
the waste wizard. Yeah, it sounds like a great resource. Because I feel like I'm very sophisticated, but in recycling, but even I sometimes like some of these plastic numbers, I don't know.
Yeah.
Kevin or Doug, refresh my memory on, I thought part of the contract was for you all to do this kind of education that we're talking about.
Absolutely, what we do a couple Fish Fridays, we're going to do Dandelion Days, we do these kind of things. We have information on the website and through the town, we'll try to get some more information out.
I think what we're thinking is a really specific blast of information with this data, right? People respond to the data of like, from our town, from your neighborhood, there's 30% of stuff that could have been recycled in the trash. Like, here's the top items you can recycle these,
Sure.
That kind of really targeted, you decide how to get that information out, but I'd love to see what Mountain Waste can do before we start using our own resources and time on it. And then build on that, like go for it, e-board, but I really want to make sure that they're upholding that part of the contract.
Yes, Heather, Catherine, who's my territory manager here, also their social media, we do our things through Facebook. And other social media should be in contact.
Yeah, and I think next year when we get the update, we'll talk about that. We'll say, how did that go? Well, we will have all seen that information because we all live in the town and we'll sort of evaluate that. There are lots of ways to get information out, so we want you to use your marketing department's expertise on how to best inform people. I have a couple questions. On recycling, I've seen these reports about how much of the stuff is like aspirational recycling, right? Like I think
Wish
recycling. The one that I remember reading and seeing like a whole thing on PBS about was the clamshells, the one that blueberries and stuff. They said there's no place in the whole country that recycles those, but they have the number and everybody throws them in. I guess my question is that true that we're putting a lot of stuff in recycling and feeling good about it, but it's just getting hauled off and bailed and and put in landfill? And is there anything we can do around information around that stuff?
So the numbers 1 through 7, connotate the chemical makeup of the material. That was essentially started by the oil companies and the plastic manufacturers. And it is theoretically possible, if you put all the 3s together, the 4s together, you can get a single stream of product that could be recycled. Only 1s and 2s are recycled. There is no market for 3 through 7. In our lifetimes, there will be no market for 3 through 7. It says what it is, so, but it's not, there's just no market for it.
So what do you do with those when you do this analysis? That's considered trash.
No, well, it is theoretically divertible.
Okay.
That information comes from, well, first of all, by the way it's diverted. So we took it to the recycling, and this is what people put in, and the contamination rates for Carbondale are exceedingly low.
Okay, that's good to
You know,
hear.
we do inspections, we come up to our transload facility. We are looking to see each truck where, if there's a big issue, and if we see that, we're jumping around. We manually empty into the back of the railroad truck and recycle, so it's visually sorted, make sure if there's an issue, we'll contact that customer. And then as a whole, we'll be with that 4 or 5 tons that come into the truck and kind of do an overview and see how we're doing there. Sorry.
Well, I'm just wondering, is it worth some public information and outreach around?
I have this, probably I have this conversation every time I go. So your plastics 1 and 2 hold liquid, generally to help you. Single-use plastic water bottles, detergent bottles, everything, absolutely recycle those. 3 through 7, that's up to you, but there's no home for it. You're better off throwing it away.
And that, I know that that's a hard message to put out there. Like, I think if you started putting that out there, people would say, we need a better hauler who actually recycles the stuff. But the harsh reality is nobody's recycling that stuff.
There is no money. That's generally what's shipped over and burned as waste energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wonder if we get honest with that at some point, but again, we'll leave that to.
And the other one is if it's smaller than a deck of cards, it's going to get sifted out as trash anyway. Don't worry about the little pieces.
Okay. I guess that's what people say with lids.
Yeah. Right, so again, this product starts on the ground and goes up conveyor belts, like magnets and blowers and optical sensors that sort it out. They keep the rocks and the dirt out of the equipment. The screen drops anything smaller than a deck of cards.
I think all that kind of information, like as you talk back with your colleagues at your company, that it would be interesting to, the town of Carbondale wants to know that kind of stuff. You know, I think people here are really, they take pride in their recycling, you know, and it's part of their ethic. And they want to do it right. And I think that it could, you know, if there was a monthly like tip of the month for recycling for a year, and it was like, don't worry about the little stuff. Don't worry about 3 through 7. Focus on these things.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. It's showing, don't do this on Wednesdays. This is some don'ts.
Yeah.
Through our Facebook page and getting that information.
I'm curious, 'cause I mean, I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, I heard that the rate for like recycling aluminum is close to 80%.
Oh, it's higher than that.
Right, whereas plastic is what, like maybe 5% or less than that?
No, I think it's a little higher than that. The highest value and the thing that can be unlimited product lines is aluminum, and it is so significantly cheaper to make aluminum out of aluminum cans than smelt down naphtha. And one of the key ingredients in smelting aluminum, I guess there's a worldwide shortage of that. Craft breweries and other things have made a shortage of it.
But I mean, I think that's kind of educating the public as part of the product.
You know,
Like, purchase.
drink your beer out of a keg is the most efficient. Hey, this is party.
Just keeping it on topic.
Any other questions or comments about our annual waste and purchase report?
Like I enter in every conversation, tell us what you need, we'll figure it out.
Well, and thank you for the update on the overflow issues. You know, that's something that we really struggled with for a while there. and had some pretty frank conversations, I think, about what was and wasn't being communicated to customers, and it sounds like if you're doing the sticker and the really clear notice, people don't want that overflow charge. The one that came up after next week that I never figured out what the answer was the cardboard outside of a recycle container. Is that enough? You're picking it up, okay. Because I know that that's really, there's so much delivery. We're just talking about the post office. Everybody's got all this cardboard. Yeah, you can drop it off at Public Works if you're here during the right hours of the day. But that's challenging.
Have you all seen the amount of cardboard at Public Works?
Yeah. Okay, so that's not, you're not incurring overflow charges for that. I appreciate that, because I think at one point, you were.
We service that every day.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Chris?
The only last one would be whether you have had any, or I don't even know if you have the information on this, if you've had any issues with bear stuff this last year.
Not Carbondale, it was a really bad year for Aspen. There was only 3 bears. They stuck around the whole time. We had lots of issues. It was 3 bears. I don't know that we had a single Carbondale issue. And the amount of backyard compost, fruit trees, and trash cans.
Yeah. Lots of bear treats. All right, thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. All right, I think it's time for the Kevin show. We're ready for you, Kevin.
That's good.
And this first one's an interesting one. This is one that I don't think this board has talked about before, so.
Let's see which one we're talking about. Dryup Covenant.
Yeah, and I think you can assume we've read the packet, but at the same time, I can't say I was this isn't one where it's like you've read the packet, you have any questions, if you can help us understand this a little bit, I think that would be.
So the gist of it is that there is a portion of RVR that was about 84.3 acres. It is one. Stop yelling at me.
Let's get on the show.
So there's a portion of RVR that was 84.3 acres in size, but when the property changed hands to the folks who developed RVR, only 51 acres of water rights, if you will, went with it. They retained the other 33.3, which meant, and I'm sure that was probably a calculation. I would guess they looked at it and said, well, you're going to have houses, you're going to have roads, you're going to have this, you don't need to irrigate the whole 84.3 acres. So they retained those rights, which ultimately, what's in front of you was going to have to be done at some time anyway. And the reason it's here now is because the current owner of those rights to irrigate 33.3 acres has gone to water court and said, hey, we want to irrigate 33.3 acres with these rights. They're different from where they used to be used, but we still will use. Jump in when I get this completely messed up. So, as part of that court case that they're going through, this dried up map that was included in here was created to show where. So you're basically not double dipping. I mean, that's what it boils down to. So on the map, you can see calculations for house sites, roads, and the big thing was there still needed to be 2.3 approximately acres in the golf course area that needed to be permanently dried up. So what's in front of me is basically a commitment to dry up that additional acreage to meet that 33.3 acre dry up need. Part of the reason that we're signatories to this, even though it's the majority of the issue is the golf course, is 1, we own the water rights, and 2, we own all the rights of way where a lot of the dry up happened. So I think from both Mark and I's perspective, this is something we needed to do anyway at some point in time. Anything I'd like? If you like, but I don't need to. I mean, I think if you have thoughts, I don't know. Well, to me, this is just, it was a sleeping kind of a dead issue that, you know, the Perrys, but way back when RVR was sold to Hines and Hines developed RVR, they got, and the town got certain water rights, but this was extra. That wasn't needed for the town's water system, it wasn't gonna be used because of the dry up, and it just sat there for years and years and years, and now the property where the Perrys were is owned by Tom Bailey, you know, so he and his lawyers identified this extra water that wasn't being used or needing to be used on the RVR side of the fence, and so they went in and said, we'd like to have those credits, we call them credits, the credits that used to go on that 30 acres. We want to use it on 30 acres on our side of the fence. I don't know if you guys remember, but the low line ditch used to can't come through an open ditch out there. You could see it in the field, and now you can't because it's been piped. When that pipe went in, they moved it up the hill. And just coincidentally, that allowed them to irrigate 33 more acres than was irrigated when the ditch was just gravity flow. And so this is just them filling a hole and saying, we'd like to officially legalize what we're doing over there on that extra acreage, and we have this full credit that we're entitled to by all the documentation from when RVR was developed. But as far as I know, this water was not owned by the town, is not needed by the town or RVR for its operations.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
So they've gone to court and it's merely that we're merely. It's basically required that we do this, right?
More or less, yeah, there are a bunch of agreements provided for this, Chris. And they are in the concluding, they've been in water court for a few years. Water court's been really slow, but they are about done, and this is one of the last issues to be finished.
Okay, so did we have water rights at one time?
We still do, we just didn't have this particular piece of this.
Okay, so this is just a portion of our water rights from RVR.
Correct. When the town annexed RVR and it was developed by Hines, I believe it was a one cubic foot per second. I don't know if water to irrigate 40 acres came to the town, but not this extra water that was retained by the town.
So this is not detrimental to the town.
As far as I know.
Okay, thank you.
Practically, they've been using it already. It has.
They had been using for a number of years because it's been going on that extra acreage. This just now makes that
Official, all right. And have you had more success with, I know you've had some, seemed like there were some delays involving our micro hydro system involving the same entity. I don't know if this offered you an opportunity to engage on that issue concurrently. I know it's sort of a separate deal, but I know you were trying to get some, information out of them or something.
this is not the same entity.
Oh, it's not.
Different property line.
All right.
Any other questions?
One, so the dry up terminology kind of struck me a little bit, so it just means that there's going to be a transfer of use, right? And we're not going to fallow the ditch or anything.
No, it just means it's permanently moved from irrigation, but here, for the most part, it's already happened because of streets and rooftops and driveways and all that. That all used to be agricultural.
Yeah, we're talking about up on Perry Bridge.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's some more questions, there's a motion on page 143 of the packet.
I'm sorry. Move to approve the attached dry up covenant and authorize the mayor to execute the same.
Second.
Motion by Colin, second by Erica. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Which passes unanimously. All right, thanks for that. Moving on, we've got the 8th Street project, phase 2 bid. Possibly the first of many projects where we budget, we go out to bid, come back over budget, and we have to decide what to do next.
Before we go down the maybe more disappointing road of this, we did open bids for the Preschool River Restoration Project, and they did not follow this same pattern, so that was a good thing.
Thank you. I'm glad. Good last year.
So 8th Street Phase 2, we originally thought that project, which I think maybe 13 months ago, we thought it was going to be in the mid-$400,000 range. After seeing what happened last year, we kicked that up by about 30% for this year's budgeting purposes. We put $550,000 in the budget for that. We went out to bid and we got one bid and it was $710,000, which is, I don't know, I did the math, 69% higher than it was. We were guessing it was 13 months ago. So somewhat probably unusual for me. I wanted to have this discussion with the board and, you know, get your weigh in on what to do. I don't have a really solid recommendation. I have my thoughts on it, but in my mind, there was a few things we could do. One is go ahead and award the project and come up with the additional funding to do that, which would be in the tune of $195,000 to $200,000 and some $1,000. We could try to bid the project again, you know, here in the near future. We could wait a year and try to bid the project at that point in time. Maybe budget a little bit more if we can work it into next year's budget and see how those bids turn out. Or, and if all of those fail, kind of the fallback position from my perspective would be not to just shelve the project and not do it, but maybe piece it out and have our crews work on that for a few years in a row to get the final result. So that's what I wanted to talk about.
Can you tell us, we'll open up our questions, but just tell us a little bit more about that last option. What that would look like, how you think it would impact the budget, and how you think it would impact your streets crew workload, feasibility of doing something like that over a few seasons.
I think workload wise, we could definitely work it into our schedule for the year. And that's kind of why I proposed it being over 3 or 4 years, you know. Not saying this is exactly how it would go, but if we went that route, you know, maybe we work on the bump out areas 1 year. Work on the intersection down at Village and up at Merrill with the pedestrian ADA compliant stuff. And then over the next couple of years, we work on pick an end and start and work on rebuilding the sidewalk. You know, my gut tells me that from the actual impact you would see in the budget, it might seem cheaper, but that's typically because our public works crew and our equipment operation is already in the budget. Doesn't mean it will be cheaper, but it might be less expensive, but it's going to take a longer period of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we'd be primarily paying for materials rather than labor and equipment. But if those guys didn't be doing that work instead of something else, so there's still a kind of opportunity cost there, right?
If we start with running, excuse me, if we start with running Public Works Department and do some of the project, we could still put it out for rebid next year, say. The contract would change to be less work for the contractor to do. So hopefully that would bring down their bid as well.
So in that scenario, I may have mentioned it in here, I may not have. Before we just start working on it, I think it's worth trying to bid it out one more time. It's really hard to kind of say we did the bump outs. Well, then they have to work around those instead of fitting it into their schedule for doing the whole thing. So I would bid it one more time, I think, and then make that decision if it's necessary.
No, that answers my question. And that also leads me to, I'd be comfortable with having them bid it out one more time. We're no worse off than we are now, correct?
Right.
And if we get a bid that's more in the neighborhood of between 550 and 600, then we can look at, do we have enough budget to make that work?
That's what we budgeted this year, wasn't it? In the end?
550.
550.
Lauren, did you have something?
I just wanted to ask Kevin to please be specific about when you would recommend that bid happen, because you mentioned rebidding it now, or also rebidding it next spring. And in context of what you're talking about with Marty, is your recommendation to bid it out again early next spring? And then if it still comes back high, then figure out another plan.
That's what my gut tells me to do, because I don't think bidding it out here in a month or so is really gonna change the outcome, because I do think that this bid was fairly reflective of costs, regardless of whether we got one bid or not. I mean, you know, this company we've worked with on the Snowmass Drive Trail on 3rd Street, on Colorado Avenue Sewer. And they had no way of knowing that they were gonna be the only bid that was submitted on this, so I'm fairly certain as of right now, this is probably a fairly true cost. It's an unusual situation for me, but I would say if you're gonna rebid it, I would rebid it next year. I would probably do it a little bit later. You know, we hit this pretty early. It's kind of turning the convention that I'm used to for my entire career on its head. But this really, I think, has a lot to do with, I think I mentioned it in the memo, the kind of the ratio of contractors to projects this year. Maybe that changes next year. And if we do it a little bit later, maybe some of those folks who were, you know, holding out for that one big job to get them through the whole year. If 6 people bid on that, only one's gonna get it. 5 might be looking for some more work then.
Yeah, that was along the lines of one of my questions was, if you heard any input from other contractors on why they didn't bid, or if they're just maxed out like we hear everybody is.
I did hear, and I'm not gonna mention contractors by name, but I did hear that there was one that was really kind of throwing all their eggs in one basket for a big project that's happening this year. Yeah, and the other thing that they're struggling with, just like PR and everybody else, is, you know, they can bid all the work in the world, but if they have no workers to do it, or no truck drivers or equipment operators, they're facing the same challenges with fuel costs, material availability. I just think, to a certain degree, particularly with the material availability, you know, in this one, I was told that only one of the 2 concrete companies in the valley even was willing to do this. So, you know, if you take away 50% of the competition, that's why I'm being kind of wishy-washy, but my gut just tells me doing something here in the near term probably isn't going to change the outcome. And I would say, let's budget for it next year. Let's try it again next year. And if it doesn't work out, then we fall back to kind of the self-performance model. Because I'm still very convinced that we should finish this project before we realize the benefits.
If we move it to next year, and because I don't have our whole capital plan in front of us or anything, is there anything else we want to get done that if we added to it, you know, said we have 8th Street and we have this other project, we have a roundabout. Something else that would make it a little bit bigger. Obviously, it won't get a contractor through the year, but I don't know. Something that we could think, we have time to think about it, but if that would help.
I don't know that I would necessarily be concerned about that piece of it, because I mean, this is purely my perspective. But if we choose not to do it this year, it's not like we're gonna go out and spend the $550,000 on something else. So that's still there. And if the jobs, whether it's roundabouts, whether it's other things are contracted, we have the capacity to manage 2 contracts like this at the same time. So I wouldn't worry about that.
Well, and would that be appealing, I guess, to a contractor to, if we packaged them and said, so it's a bigger project for them to bid on and maybe brings down the cost of both?
If you're talking about a roundabout Main Street, probably not. If you're talking about some other improvements, like we talked, we're gonna try to do that one on Callan Crossing. If we do something else like that, maybe.
Other questions?
Yeah, Kevin, I'm just curious if we do, push it to a year from now, I mean, what's your estimate on how much we should be budgeting for this?
Based on this, I would probably budget $650,000.
So less than what we actually, this recent bid is.
Yeah, because if it's the same, then I think this discussion would be, you wanna spend $710,000, you want us to do it over the next 3 or 4 years in-house.
If you're gonna go the in-house route, how successful have you been with staffing up, and do you feel confident that you'd be able to find workers to, like, do you feel like you have that I guess what would that mean for you? And I guess we have $550,000 to allocate toward that, or maybe a portion of that towards another employee or something. I don't know if does that change it? What do you think of that?
I don't think we would have to staff up to do this. It's like Ben said, it's always about prioritization. And that's why I would break it down into these smaller chunks. I don't really want the streets crew working an entire summer on one project, because then everything else is going to be forgotten. But I think if we piece it out, we can do that. And I have all the confidence in the world that we can do it with our streets crew as it exists.
All right.
Would something else that I couldn't even tell you what it is probably not happen? Sure. But there hasn't been a day since I started here where we showed up and went, well, everything's done. What are we gonna do?
Let's talk about a path forward then. I mean, I gotta say that I'm inclined to look at it as an in-house job. Rather than wait another year for another bid, allocate more money to it, and then maybe end up doing that anyway. I'd rather get started on it, piece it out over the next few years and start chipping away at it. I feel like there's the potential otherwise for the money that we budgeted to get us less and less every year because of just general inflation. All your money in your savings account is getting you about 10% less a year the longer it sits there, even without these really big run-ups in construction bids. I also feel like there's a potential for this project to kind of lose some momentum and lose some support. It's been a long time coming. We'll have some new board members just over a year from now. Like, all those things make a difference. And I would hate to see it kind of lose momentum, go out for bid again, be at this level or higher, and maybe not get done. So the fact that Kevin's kind of looking for guidance here and is open to these, I guess I'm just not very optimistic that a year from now the bid will be lower. I don't want to get in the game of predicting costs in the future, but I wouldn't place my money on it being lower a year from now, and I'd rather start getting something done, because then even if all we got done was the bulb outs and some striping, and we said, okay, the sidewalk itself is good enough. Like, if we got to that point in a year or two, I mean, Chris raised some good questions, I think, about the value proposition of spending this kind of money on this, east side when we've got a good sidewalk on the west side. I think those are valid questions that keep coming up. So that's kind of where I am, but I'd love to hear from the rest of the board. I'm open to whatever the board thinks is best.
I guess if we were gonna go in-house, I think I would prioritize maybe, I don't know if I would start with the bulb outs, I think I would start with the end down by the cemetery. And maybe if you had more of like, if you did, I don't know, if you did decide to go back to bid at some point and you had it just a more of a complete stretch of street that's not mucked about with little bulb outs and things, and maybe somebody could do the sidewalk and all the bulb outs in one go, and we could try to work on the crossing in Merrill, maybe it's this year or whatever, and a crossing at the other one another year. I don't know how big. Kind of up to you, but I think the in-house thing sounds better to me. I think if we say this is $710,000. I think people in principle believe in it, but when we start looking at all these other environmental things that people want us to do, and then this sounds like a lot of money we're putting into concrete, which is not immediately, doesn't immediately bring to mind environmental things. I feel like constituents might not be too happy about that.
Other thoughts? Our options again are go with this bid and find the extra funding, rebid it later, see if it gets any better, or start to do it in-house. Erica, Marty?
This was when we're coming in ahead of time. I was like, man, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
What are we gonna do? So I really appreciate hearing from everybody and hearing your openness and to what we move forward with. I would be inclined if you, go ahead and move forward with the in-house. Because I think even if we say, okay, let's put it in our budget for 700, then we might as well just say, let's do it for 700 now. And find the money this year instead of trying to find it next year. I don't know. I feel like it kind of narrows. I feel like that kind of narrows our thinking. But I definitely agree with the points you were saying on chipping away at what will make a difference on some of those crossings so that we're not just waiting and waiting for that to get done. And you thinking you and your crew could do it, and yeah, I think we can get started on it.
Well, my question for you is, if you and your crew do it, are we looking at 3 years, 4 years? Would you think, just your opinion? I'm gonna hold you to it.
Yeah. You know, being realistic, I think it's better to do it. That's that way. And I hear what you're saying, Chris, but I was using examples, not. My God, we gotta do this.
This becomes 6 or 7 years. From the time it was brought to us to its completion. And while I hate the idea of having to allocate an extra, whatever it is, $195,000 to $235,000, because we don't just have that line around, in a spare change drawer. I don't think this should be put off 4 years. And I was not a big proponent of this plan originally, you remember. If we're gonna do it, we either bite the bullet and pay the money now, or wait 1 year and bite the bullet then, or if the bullet is so bad, if it's gone up 20% from then to 850,000, then we need to ask ourselves, do we really want to allocate 4 years worth of public works time or another 850,000 to this half of the project? We also, the homeowners and the traffic that uses that street, they were told that this would be done in a reasonable period of time. They weren't told this was going to be a 6 or 7 year project.
Good point. Yeah, I wondered about that too. I mean, how disruptive would it be? Like when we say 3 or 4 years, it's obviously not disruptive during the whole year during those times. Like how much time do you think would be each year? I know we're asking you a lot of things that you just don't have the detail on, but just I agree with Marty's concern there that we don't want this to be an ongoing construction zone for years on end.
You know, I would think we would probably spend a month or less on this each year. And, you know, I think in some ways, doing it that way could be less impactful to the folks that live there than doing it all at once. You remember what it looked like last year when pretty much nobody on the west side could get in or out of their driveways and that sort of stuff. You know, you'd be minimizing it. If you took Chris's example, when you worked on the crossings at Morrison and Merrill, you know, you'd be focused on those ends, and pretty much everybody in the middle would just keep doing their thing. Then if you come back and do bump outs next, you know, you'd be impacted the folks where the bump outs are. Then if you decided to do, okay, I'm gonna do half the sidewalk starting at whichever end, it may be less impactful for the folks that live there, while being a little more impactful for the traveling public that goes through there, because it's a longer, you know, like you said, 3 or 4 years of traffic comes. That's my 2 cents on it.
So the upside would be that generally it's more user friendly. Generally, people would see ongoing work happening, so it's not as though nothing was happening. And then could you though take the option of bringing someone in to do the completion if their costing met what we still had remaining in the budget to kind of get you off the hook there to do other things?
Yeah, I mean, it might be a much more palatable job if all you were doing was replacing the sidewalk, you know, for a contractor. Because at the same point in time where we did this, when we got to an area where a dry well was called out on the plans, we put dry wells in all over town. It's not that we can't do that, we would. So.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable that we could accomplish this and not let the rest of the town suffer.
And you could probably bring us back, right, just as part of your work plan or something, kind of what that phase seemed like, look like. We've thrown out a few potentials, but you look at it and say, I think based on, you know, access and based on if it's going to come later and based on what's most urgent, you know, we're going to do these things first and these things last. Does that sound like the direction we want to go? Does anybody think, I mean, again, our other 2 options are go with this bid. I'm not hearing anybody say go with this bid. Or wait a year and bid again and don't get started on the work in the meantime. And hope it's less than this bid. Or start moving forward with a phased plan, mostly in-house and maybe with the potential for some outsourced contract work down the road. Tom?
So along those lines, so if we decided we want to go, this is bid, we'd have to come up with $200,000, which would come from reserves.
Mhm.
No one's really interested in it.
I just think it's, you know, this is like the question when we were at RAFTA and the underpasses in Glenwood have gotten to be a $20 or $22 million project. And I just asked the question, like, at what point is a project not worth doing? And it seems like some of them are getting there. I mean, I actually think that's at some point inflation will slow down if we start to say things aren't quite worth that. We're not just going to keep going.
Well, I mean, I would think we want to move forward, so we either accept the bid and use reserves, or we take Kevin's suggestion and we piece it out, and maybe there's the opportunity in year 2 to rebid a section of it, and they can move forward. And that's, I would leave that up to Kevin's, you know, expertise to figure that out. When you put that in, I thought, wow, he's really giving us an out. Wow, we don't have to make a right decision about, you know, finding $220,000. So, but I like that. If he thinks he can do it, let's try and make it happen, because that we really do want to keep going. And I'm also, Marty makes great points. We're really sensitive to construction but it sounds like it wouldn't be everybody. And, there's there's some logistics to this that Kevin can start working on with his staff to figure out and make it happen. So I think that's a great idea, and if we can do it, let's try it.
I was just saying, along the lines of thinking about digging into the reserves, I have a feeling we'll have some other projects that we might feel like are a higher priority that we might dig into our reserves for. So that's where I was coming from that. Again, it's kind of like that. Is that where we would want to go looking to use that money that we might find somewhere? Or are there other things? So I did agree. I feel like it was a total out. I'm like, oh, okay, there's a resolution.
Yeah, I kind of, if we can do this with the hybrid, where you could start doing some of it. And then next year you can look at bidding at the rest of it. You know, and if the bid is still outrageous, well, then we can continue with doing it in-house. The other thing is, when you're speaking about reserves, he's speaking about a buy-down fund. You know, that if we have to come up with $250,000 to get $3 million in state and federal money, I hate to say it, but that's where I put our reserves.
Hopefully we use our housing fund for that.
Yeah. We're using our housing fund for a lot already. But, so I think this hybrid is, you know, the best we can do at this time.
Yeah, and if we didn't have if we didn't have the sidewalk on the other side of the street, it would be a different story. But to me, the really pressing issue has been solved, which is accessibility for people with wheelchairs and stuff up and down. And so this is, I really do want us to finish this. I agree we want to finish this, but I think I can have patience with it, and hopefully we can. Yeah, I think it's should be up to you to decide, what bite can we bite off that might lead the best prospect for bidding something out if you felt like, oh, this is too much next year. And then similarly, I would still be amenable if you feel like, you know, crap, this project would go a lot better if we could have one more guy out there. I think I would be open to budgeting around another employee or something. If that, I know you don't think, but if that seemed like it, I think that might be a way to make it a faster project.
All right, it sounds like we're ready to move forward. So just for the record, I'll try to summarize. Direction then would be for us to take Kevin up on his last option in the memo, or sorry, that's not the last option. Thank you. The second option in the memo is to start doing it in-house, with phasing to be determined by works. And at least share with us at some part as part of the work, at some point as part of the work plan, and we get, we don't need to approve that formally, but so that we have a general idea, and the neighbors have a general idea, kind of what the plan is. Bike Ped Trails has an idea. And I think these suggestions of if there's a way to reserve some piece that would be easy to bid out as one thing, you know, again, we trust your judgment on that, whether that's feasible or not, and what it should be. But we'd like to see it started this year and using some of the budgeted funds for the costs associated with that. Is that clear guidance? Work for you?
Yeah, and the thing I would add to this is I will commit to you that this is going to be a trial. We'll give it a shot. We'll see what we do. And if it's just like messing everything up, I will tell you that.
Great.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for your openness and, you know, just good conversation about what makes sense. All right. Next on the agenda is chip seal and then crack seal. Similar in some ways.
Yes. Although, with chip seal, the gist of this is the prices are up 45% over last year. Again, not really anticipated, but understood in the climate that we're in, not weather climate.
Economic.
Yeah, economic climate. You know, this one. I think we may have found, from my perspective, a palatable way to move forward. You know, we did get 2 bids on this. GMCO was the low bid at 210,000. What I'm recommending in here is that we take out 3 of the roads that were in this year's program and just plan on doing them next year. Doing that and combining the 182,000 that we had in the budget for chip seal, crack seal and striping with the $50,000 that we had in the budget for RVR road maintenance. And I think that's, from my perspective anyway, an appropriate thing to do, because one of the big things in this chip seal program is Crystal Bridge, all the way from one bridge to the other.
On the back.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that would be, if you took that quantity out of the chip seal, it would be more than $50,000. So if we do that, I'm pretty confident that we can get the majority of the chip sealing done that we planned on doing. I don't think we'll have any problem working it in the next year's program. And we can still accomplish, sorry, I'm leaning back. We can still accomplish the chip seal, the crack seal and the striping this year within that combined budget.
And you're leaving the slurry seal out, right? You're not gonna do that over thing.
No.
People complain about all the time, okay.
The fog sealing where we paint it black.
Mhm.
We stopped doing that in 2018. And I think, you know, and really there's multiple benefits to doing that. Just for educational purposes, you'll see like next year CDOT's going to chip seal 133 south of town. They will do that on that portion of it. That's because it's a higher speed road and it tends to lock those chips down so they don't fly into windshields. The only other reason to do it is aesthetics.
Yeah.
It does nothing for protecting the road. And that's why we stopped doing it. And if you think about it in the context of climate these days, a black road's gonna absorb and radiate more heat than a gray road will. So I wouldn't fog seal anything unless I was told to by 4 of you.
Can we talk about what the striping, what projects those entail?
So every year we restripe all of the crosswalks in town. The parking areas like on 4th Street around Town Hall, handicap parking spots.
All right.
Stop bars, it's all
Let's,
over.
okay, yeah. Great. Let's see what that was.
Okay, we have a motion. Oh, go ahead. Cindy.
It might be for the group. We did just free up the budget. And I guess I do worry when I see us start cutting back on taking care of streets, because I know that might leave it for future boards to then deal with the maintenance. Like, will we be kind of starting to get, I just want to think through like next year, then if we have costs are again this much higher. And then we're looking at like, okay, what streets are we not gonna fix or do this for? Are we gonna just find ourselves really far behind?
From my perspective, no.
Okay.
If you look at what we reduced this to this year, I'll be quite honest, I was taking a gamble with putting this many streets in this year. But my intel, which didn't work out worth a darn, said that it was not gonna go up as much as it did. Anyway, but what we cut it back to this year is about the size of the program we did last year.
Okay.
So,
No, that's all.
Good question, though. I mean, I think that that's like, we really appreciate the fact that we've got a public works department that stays ahead of maintenance so that we don't have deferred maintenance issues that pile up and then all need to be done at once, or things that are totally crumbling and neglected. So I think staying on top of maintenance is always good questions.
I'd like to make a motion.
All right, do it, Marty.
I move to approve and authorize the mayor to sign 2023 chip seal program agreement with GM Co. LLC.
I'll second that.
Motion by Marty, second by Chris. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And now the crack seat.
well, this one went up too, but fortunately, it's one of the smaller programs we do. As discussed. I gotta get, this is about 35% higher versus 45 with chip seal. The way we just talked about combining those funds, this $21,000 will still work within the amount that was budgeted, combining the two. We actually got 4 bids or quotes on this, which is surprising. I think for the last couple of years, we've only had 2. You know, you can see in there was a pretty wide range of pricing. But Bonneville has been the low quote the last 3 years plus 1 before that, and they tend to do really good work. They get in here, get their business done and get out of town, and I would see no reason from my perspective not to go ahead and award it to them.
Questions about this one? Or I thought I recognize that name, Bonneville, from past years. Yeah. Okay. There's a motion on page 164.
I move to approve and authorize the mayor to sign the 2023 crack sealing program agreement with Bonneville Asphalt and Repair.
By Erica, second by Lonnie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes unanimously. All right. And Kevin, last item on the agenda, multi-modal mobility and access plan. Request for proposals. So we looked at this briefly last week. I see Matt here. Thanks for being here, Matt. From Bike Ped Trails. And tonight's our night to make any edits. Is that right? And do you want to give us an overview of kind of how it got to this point? And anything that you'd like feedback on?
Sure. Pointing out first that CC4CA is not the only ones that can come up with acronyms. So this is just for folks who might be paying attention tonight in the community. This is born out of the comp plan update. This was one of the big items in there that said we should look at this. And so, you know, I think it was election day, if I remember correctly, we all met up at the 3rd Street Center, and I'm like, I don't know what this is supposed to be. Can you tell me? We had a good discussion there. And then at that point, working on the nuts and bolts kind of got kicked back down to the Bike Ped Commission. They spent 3 meetings, I think, at least. And they did a really good job, in my opinion, of got some new members. They went back, looked at other communities' plans, and you know, what did they have in them? What are we trying to accomplish? Went through that for those meetings. And then what is included in your packet is basically the result of those discussions. I will give credit to Jared. Batteries.
Interesting. No, it's okay.
That's an accurate statement. So I'll give credit. Jared really put, in my opinion, the lipstick on this. He spent a lot of time putting it in the format that you see. But, you know, I guess the general gist is that, and if you want to map, the Bike Ped Commission at their last meeting said, we're good with this, let's get it out on the street. And so it's before you tonight for him to kind of feedback on what the contents are. Anything you think we should have in there that's not in there, or anything we should pull out that isn't.
Great. Matt, would you like to add anything?
No, I don't think so. I guess something a week or so ago, and I'm just here in case there's questions for us.
Okay. Thanks for being so involved and shepherding this all the way through. It's really exciting. I mean, I served as the Bike Ped Trails liaison for 6 years, and I don't have a guiding plan. It's kind of all over the place, and so every year it's this like, what should our priority be? And looking at these different plans, and listening to people who come in, and squeaky wheel, right, and focusing on one issue or another. And so I've long thought it would be great to have a really clear, prioritized plan for how we enhance and maintain the town's multimodal focus. Any questions about this or detailed comments on things that you think should be changed, added, omitted, anything about the RFP itself before it goes out? It's ambitious. It's an ambitious RFP.
No, I think everybody did a great job putting it together. Really appreciate that. Is it a trick question to highlight the date here when it's due?
No.
2020?
I started out with an old RFP, and when I do that, I tend to highlight the things that I know need to be changed. And so we're gonna fill in the date as soon as we decide when we're gonna do it.
As people have already applied. So, no, I thought great. Really looking forward to see who responds, and I think great stuff. Thanks for putting it together.
I had very little to do with the Bike Ped Commission, and Jared did the heavy lifting.
That's great. Are there anybody have any concerns or anything you feel like you're missing or that we want to exclude? I mean, it's pretty ambitious, right? I think that's one concern in talking to Lauren and Kevin is that it might come back over budget, right? We budgeted for this, but it's a pretty ambitious plan, and so it might get and like with a lot of things we're talking about is it something that we want to carve out, or do we find more money, or how do we proceed? Along those lines, just really quick, and then Marty, is there anything in here from the Bike Ped Trails Commission or planning or public works that if we said, okay, we got to take something out because it's putting us 20,000 over budget or something like that, is there any kind of big chunk in here that could be carved out, or is it really like we got to do it all if we're going to do it? Any thoughts on that?
So my initial thought on that, go ahead.
I kind of see this as we're putting out a big net, and we're going to get back components, and then you get to decide what at that point makes sense to do and what's cost effective to do. But I think it's this plan by design, the RFP is very open ended, so we get back a lot, and then we get to make choices. But I don't think there's anything now it's not specific enough by design to say I would take this out. Does that make sense?
And what I would add to that, what I would add to that is I would encourage y'all to, let's see what we get back for RFPs. Let's see what the cost is, because this is not something that's gonna be completed in a month. And we might look at those RFPs and the recommendation. And, I think we have $75,000 in the budget this year. If it came back in at 90, maybe the discussion is, do we kind of make this go over in the next year and budget the additional amount next year to finish it up? Because I think the timing would work for something like that.
Okay, and well, just a question. So where I see the first last mile, that could potentially include something like a downtown that we've spoken about before.
You know, what we've thought about in that context is it's important to include that because it's part of the multimodal mobility. But we've already done a lot of work on that. I don't know that the consultant will need to spend a ton of time. If we've already been researching the downtowner and is that something we want? We can just share that information with the consultant versus them reinventing the wheel.
Okay, thank you.
Along those lines, I like the question about, future technologies and how they might impact us, because I think we're always wondering, like, is there some next generation thing that is out there that we should wait for or go for? Luis?
Just kind of as a reference point, how much did you spend on the comp plan?
So we initially budgeted 75, if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
for the comp plan update. It ended up being, I think, about double that.
I mean, to me,
120
120.
something.
and to me, I think this is worth investing in, and this is where like I have more reservations, obviously, about drawing from reserves for about Main Street, but this is like. So, I mean, that this would be like, yes, this is where we need to like, put the from reserves to get what we want.
So hopefully 75,000 is coming right around there, but yeah, we'll see. And it sounds like we're being intentionally like not as specific as we could be, so to see if what the proposals think we need, right? And so we might get a range of kind of levels of detail.
I think the open-endedness is a recognition that we don't want to tell them what we want. From an outcome standpoint, we want their expertise to guide this plan. So, it's very easy for me to say, we should have a flashy blinky light at every road crossing on Highway 133, but that's an outcome. They might go, hey, we should look at this, we should look at this, we should look at this. We're hiring them for our expertise that we don't have in-house, and that's why the open-endedness.
Other thoughts, questions? And are we confident that this, so many planning processes lead to part of the outcome is you need to do another plan. And I'm really hoping that this isn't a plan that ends up with a recommendation for another plan. That this is the plan that really shows us the way forward on our multimodal mobility network.
I think we hit on that with talking about specifically identifying gaps in the system, whether they're this chunk of sidewalks missing or taking an overall look and going, hey, this would really be good. I think we're going to get some executable things out of this. Not a recommendation for another plan. And I think that'll become apparent probably in reading through the RFPs when they say, hey, this is how we're going to approach this. This is what you're going to get. Yeah. If somebody,
I would also add to that, I think we stayed away from it in the RFP, but the Bike Pay Trails Commission spent a lot of time developing specific items that we thought would be, outcomes. And we'll keep refining that and happy to share it with you guys when you start getting responses. That might help focus the process a little bit.
right. Yeah, there's some, what Matt's saying is there's some specific things that we're going to be looking for in these responses, but we don't want to tell them what those are because that's going to help us refine who would be the best consultant to take this on.
Okay. If there's nothing else, we can, I think we need a motion to approve the RFP. Yeah, so that's on page 176 as mentioned.
I'd move to approve sending out the request for proposals for professional consulting services for a multimodal mobility and access plan.
Second.
Motion by Collins, second by Erica. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I will continue to just call it our mobility plan. Not gonna ever call it 3AP. But if you insist. Okay, well, look at us. We're almost an hour ahead of schedule, and I think we're done. We've got minutes and correspondence, keyboard minutes, park and Shreveport and Red Hill Trail user data. I found that Red Hill Trail user data an interesting read, so if you haven't had a chance to look at that yet, it's what's scanning to the end of the packet. We don't have a meeting next week. We do have a meeting the next couple of weeks, and if anybody's going to be absent that last week of March, that's school spring break, so I will be absent. Like Luis will be out, Mark will be out. I think we'll probably keep the meeting, but we need to make sure we have a quorum and that if there's anything really major that we want the whole board to.
That's the following week, sorry.
No, so.
So March 28th.
Yeah, we've got the 14th and 28th will be our regular meetings. The 28th is the public school spring break, and so we'll be, a lot of us doing that, and then the 21st will be our work session. Anybody else thinking out on the 28th?
Actually, oh no, I'll be here.
Yeah.
What's a million, my days, I'm here with 28, I'm out on the 14th.
You're out of 14th. Okay, so we'll be fine then. That's great to know. So Luis misses the 14th, Mark and I'll miss the 28th. Otherwise, let us know. You don't think you'll be here? And enjoy a week off next week. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. You did it, Jessica.
We'll see.